Ahoy friends, welcome to Building the Alpha Dory. I'm Dan, and this is a project to build a racing dory in the style of William Chamberlain of Marblehead. We're building to the plans from John Gardner's The Dory book, illustrated by Sam Manning. Today we're hoping to get the bottom boards secured to the building bed. So yeah, let's get out there and see what we've got to do. So I've got this brace set up back here for the transom. You can see it's just a couple 2x4s cobbled together, and seems to do the trick so far, but it just makes for a good place to land the transom on. So the next thing to do here is check that the transom is laying level on that piece of of 2x. So the way I'll do that is grab one of these levels here, and I've got a line on the transom that is perpendicular to the center line. So what I'll be able to do is set this level on here on the line and see what it's going to take to level the transom. Yeah, so it looks like it's going to need a little bit of a shim under this corner. Not a lot, probably one shingle will do that. So let's see, I've got some shingle bits and pieces over here. Cut a piece of it on the cut a scrap of it on the bandsaw. So now I've got a thicker chunk and a thinner chunk. And what I'll do is with that level in hand, I can it's just going to take a little bit to get that close. So I think I'll use a slightly thinner chunk for the moment. Yeah, it's looking good. So there's another thing we'll do to to check that that's another couple things we'll do to check that that's in the right spot, but I know that that's the amount of shim I want under that corner at the moment. So the next thing to do to check that the transom is in the proper position is to get out the plumb bob. Alright, so you'll notice that the plumb bob is going to be a fairly useful tool for getting the dory set up to build. Once we get everything plumb, it's pretty much this stage of the project. You know, we aren't going to need to do it again, hopefully, until until we take the boat off the bed and it's finished. So what I'll do is go ahead and grab a little nail that we can tap into the rafter here, which will help us with the project. Okay, so it's looking like that's, we've centered the bottom on the bed, and so I'm not going to move it side to side again. Oh yeah, I'll have to show you guys the blocking that I put under the bottom as well. But anyway, it's centered on the bed, so it's not going to go side to side, and we're working on the transom now. So what we want to do is just tap a nail in here so that we can hang the plumb bob from it, and the plumb bob will be hanging just over the center line of the boat. Alright, so yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty close to it. And we can bend the nail a little bit to kind of fine tune where the bob is hanging. So we want to get this right over the center line. There it goes, that looks pretty good. Alright, so got that over the center line. Now I can stand back further down the boat, and as you can see, the that plumb bob on the center line of the boat should line up with the center line that we drew right up the middle of the transom. So if that is so, and it seems to be, then we've got a transom that is quite close to perpendicular to the bottom of the boat, and that's what we want, a vertical transom. We don't want it laid over on one side or the other. So there's one more method, or one more triple check that we're going to use to make certain that our transom is squared up in all directions to the hull of the eventual dory that we're building. So the last way that we're going to be measuring the transom to be sure that it's just so is using diagonals to the center line. Now you can go all the way to the bow if you want on this. Go off the point of the stem. If you get somebody to hold the tape, that works especially well. I think we're just going to try and go from the corners of the transom down to a point here. Like maybe we'll go to the center line at the cleat there. So let me snag the tape measure. Now for this, we're going to need to clamp the tape measure onto the boat, and so I'll put the end of the tape measure beyond the end of the transom, so I'm not putting a dent in the tape measure. Now let me see if I can find a small clamp. I'll probably use one of these. Let's see if this works. Alright, so I'm going to go 3 inches to the center line we drew, and then I'm going to be clamping the tape measure 3 inches below that, so at the 6-inch mark. And the reason for that is I can't get the clamp behind the transom up at the 3-inch, right at the the perpendicular line to this transom. So there it goes. Not the easiest clamps to use, but okay. So I'm at the 3-inch line up at the perpendicular, and then I'm clamped just at the base of the clamp is right at the 6-inch. Now I can take this tape out and go as far as I want with it, really. I think I'll just go to the it's going to be a lot easier actually if I put a mark there to measure to rather than trying to measure to the cleat itself. Alright, so I'll put a mark at the 88-inch mark. Alright, right there, 88 inches. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to swap this over to the other side, put it in the exact same place on the other side, and see if I'm at 88 inches here. I should be pretty close. Here's hoping. Doing this all for the first time with you guys, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay, at the 3-inch mark there. So we'll tension this. And yeah, so you can see we're looking good. We're right at 88 inches. See that? With this nice and tensioned. Tape's right at, within a 1/16 of 88. So the two corners of the transom we now know are square to the center line within a 1/16 of an inch, which is all that we need. I'm going to leave this up here because right now I'm going to leave the tape there because I'm going to measure it again once I've clamped everything down. Just in case things move, we want to know and we want to be able to fix it. So this is tied up against here. There's the shim there. Alright, now I'm going to snag one of my Jorgensens. Always trying to keep the work area as free as possible. So I'll see if I can run the clamp up in here. It looks like maybe I can. Alright, so before I crank down too hard on that one, snag one of my adjustables. Do my best to clamp this one down here. Hear it crushing the wedge there a little bit. So I'm going to push the wedge a little bit further in just to get a little bit more meat to the wedge so that when it crushes down, the transom will kind of be where it's supposed to be as opposed to moving. And I'm clamping with the wedge directly behind the clamp because this, like I said, this this is wedged now, so this transom is a little bit off the backing board through the center section. So I'm clamping right on the wedge where the transom is supported versus clamping in the middle where the transom is unsupported. There's a wedge on one side and it's up against on the other. You'd be tending to torque or crack the transom. So we want it to be supported everywhere we're clamping it tight. Alright, now we'll go ahead and just double check this. I didn't see anything move. That's still right on 88, so that's going to be, that's pretty much a check for both sides. Yeah, so the last thing I want to do is just recheck that plumb bob one more time. Just to be certain. So much better to be safe than sorry on this sort of a situation. And a little bit off, you know, like a little bit off, the boat is going to row great, it's going to sail great, and 99.995% of the time you're not going to even notice it by eye, you know, but it's just, you know, nice to have it, nice to reduce the number of mistakes, because they just kind of add up, you know, if you keep doing stuff, there we go, that's a good. All right, that's a good hang there. And yeah, so, oops, looks like the camera may have gone forward. All right, so yeah, I'll check that. Yeah, you can see how that center line is right in line with that plumb bob. All right, so now we've got the transom vertical. We use gravity to do that. Now, if you'll remember way back when I dragged out the strong back, the building bed, which is this piece of this assembly underneath the dory. It's a series of boards nailed together and braced and whatnot. You can go back to that, I think it's the first or second video in the series. So when we dragged it out and set it up here, we went ahead and shimmed it with these more shingles so that the strong back would be level on the floor. So we leveled the strong back to gravity. So now if we've got the transom vertical to gravity and the strong back perpendicular, we should have right angles between the bottom and the transom. And what we'll do is we'll try clamping the rest of the bottom down on the strong back, and then we'll use the level to just make sure that the bottom is in fact level, sitting level on the strong back. Because I mean, while you're applying all those forces, those downward forces, it's possible for the pressure to tweak things one way or the other a little bit. So we want to correct that if it happens. Okay, so let's get this stuff out of the way. Alright, and okay, so here we have right now there's two cross timbers here and here under the bottom, between the bottom and the strong back. And this is what we're going to be clamping onto. These cross timbers here. So above the cross timbers, we're going to set these uprights in place. And yeah, they're just, you know, you want to get them as close to the cross timbers as possible. center them on the boat. Make sure they're not overhanging. Make sure they're not overhanging this edge because the garboard plank has to come up past there. So then we'll take this piece of wood and eyeball it down the center line, and we're going to use one of these kick sticks, or this is actually a bottom brace, but whatever. We're going to hammer it in on this between this timber up on the rafters. It's going to go up against there and then the bottom of the boat. So I'll show you how we do that. Just like this. That's looking pretty good. I'll just come over here and grab a hold of the mallet. There we go, so we got a gun. We've got that pressurized big time. You can tell this thing is not moving. It's not going to go anywhere. It is firm on that building bed. So let's go ahead and see where we're at. Yeah, it looks good. We're right between the level lines. That's an excellent sign. So that's the first of 3 kick sticks that are going in. They're just going to lock this bottom permanently in place. Like we wouldn't believe. This thing's not going anywhere. That's for sure. Alright, that one's going to need the proverbial shingle wedgie. So I'll snag one of those. And you can tell with 3 of these setting this in the center line. Right, coming up with the shingle wedgie. I'm going to slide the whole thing on the and the idea is basically with this whole thing to really just wedge it in place to the point where you can't get much, if any, movement there. Alright, that's got it. That's looking good. Alright, and then back at the stern, we got this one here. One of the advantages of having a small shop is you can reach pretty much anywhere in the shop from wherever you're standing. Alright, and then this one's going to be going on the aft frame. Looks like I might want to shingle under this one as well. We'll see. See how hard it goes in with the yeah, probably gonna want a little bit of a wedgy-dedgy under that one as well. See what we can get. Just a little thin piece, that's for sure. Not a big wedge at this point. Yeah, probably gonna need a little bit more pressure on it, like what I got at the moment. Here we go, this one could work. Super thin little bit of a